You have ventured back into the realm of the Book of Days, and you are welcome. Come, and let's have a look at January 23rd entries into Robert Chambers' The Book of Days. January 23rd, died James Earl of Moray, Regent of Scotland, 1570. William Pitt, statesman, died 1806. It is the feast day of Saint Amarantia, virgin martyr, martyred in the year thereabouts 304. It is St. Eusebius' feast day, abbot in Syria in the 4th century, and it is also the feast day of St. Raymond of Pennafort. St. Eusebius, or Eusebius, took nourishment only once in 4 days, but would not allow any of his monks to pass above 2 days without eating, states Butler. Their intervals were rather long, but on Eusebius' part, the proportions were generous. Saint Raymond, Raymond of Pennafort, was a Spanish saint who derived his fame from having been one of the earliest and most devoted of the order of Saint Dominic. By wonderful exertions as a missionary preacher, he restored large portions of his country to Christianity, which had previously been wholly in possession of the Moors. Towards the end of his life, having been taken by James, King of Aragon, to the island of Majorca, he met there with the most brilliant success in converting the pagan inhabitants. He found all his happiness blighted by the personal immorality of the king. Failing to bring the king to a better life, Raymond desired to leave the island, but this king would not permit it. He even threatened with death anyone who should help the holy man to make his escape. What followed may be stated in the words of Butler. The saint, full of confidence in God, said to his companion, "A king of the earth endeavors to deprive us of the means of retiring, but the King of heaven will supply them." Raymond then walked boldly to the waters, spread his cloak upon them, tied up one corner of it to a staff for a sail, and having made the sign of the cross, stepped upon it without fear, while his timorous companion stood trembling and wandering on the shore. On this new kind of vessel, the saint was wafted with such rapidity that in 6 hours he reached the harbor of Barcelona, 60 leagues distant from Majorca. Those who saw him arrive in this manner met him with acclamations, but he, gathering up his dry cloak, put it on and stole through the crowd and entered his monastery. Saint Raymond. Also, today, let's make mention of what was a profession in the old times, that of an ale taster. Yes, an ale taster. It is noted in Dr. Langbane's collections under January 23rd, 1617, that John Searle had a patent from Arthur Lake, Bishop of Bath and Wells and Vice Chancellor of Oxford, for the office of ale taster to the university in the making and assizing of bottles of hay. The office of ale tasting requires that he go to every ale brewer that day that they brew, according to their courses, and taste their ale, for which his ancient fee is 1 gallon of strong ale and 2 gallons of small wort, worth a penny. Also remarked on this 23rd of January were wonders in the air. This is a fascinating little piece. 23rd January 1612 was published A Great Wonder in Heaven Showing, etc., etc., a thin brochure now exceedingly rare. Its statement was to the effect that on a Saturday in the bypass Christmas time, there had occurred at Kennington in Northhamptonshire the apparition and noise of a battle in the air, a ghostly repetition of the conflict which 2 months before had taken place on the adjacent fields at Edgehill between the forces of the king and the Parliament. It was between 12 and 1 in the morning that there was, quote, "heard by some shepherds and other countrymen and travellers, first a sound of drums afar off, and the noise of soldiers, as it were, giving out their last groans, at which they were much amazed, and amazed stood still, till it seemed by the nearness of the noise to approach them, at which, too much affrighted, they sought to withdraw as fast as possibly they could. But then, on a sudden, while they were in these cogitations, appeared in the air the same incorporeal soldiers that made those clamours, and immediately, with ensigns displayed, drums beating, muskets going off, cannons discharged, horses neighing, which also to these men were visible, the alarm or entrance to this game of death was struck up. One army which gave the first charge having the king's colours, and the other the Parliament's, in their head or front of the battles, and so pell-mell to it they went. The battle that appeared to be the king's forces, seeming at first to have the best, but afterwards to be put into apparent rout. But till 2 or 3 in the morning, in equal scale, continued this dreadful fight, the clattering of arms, noise of cannons, cries of soldiers, so amazing and terrifying, the poor men, that they could not believe that they were mortal, or give credit to their ears and eyes. Run away they durst not, for fear of being made a prey to these infernal soldiers, and so they, with much fear and affright, stayed to behold the success of the business. After some 3 hours' fight, that army which carried the king's colours withdrew, or rather appeared to fly. The other, remaining, as it were, masters of the field, stayed a good space, triumphing and expressing all the signs of joy of conquest. Then, with all their drums, trumpets, ordnance, and soldiers, vanished. The poor men, glad they were gone, made with all haste to Kenton, and there, knocking upon Mr. Wood, a justice of the peace, who called up his neighbour, Mr. Marshall, the minster, they gave them an account of the whole passage, and averred it upon their oaths to be true. Maybe they were the town ale tasters. What follows is most remarkable of all. The gentlemen, thus apprised of what had taken place, quote, suspending their judgments till the next night about the same hour, they, with the same men, and all the substantial men of that and the neighbouring parishes, drew thither, where about a half an hour after their arrival on Sunday, being Christmas night, appeared, in the same tumultuous warlike manner, the same 2 adverse armies, fighting with as much spite and spleen as formerly. The next night they appeared not, nor all that week, but on the ensuing Saturday night, in the same place and at the same hour, they were again seen with far greater tumult, fighting in the manner above mentioned for 4 hours or very near, and then vanished, appearing again on Sunday night, and performing the same actions of hostility and bloodshed. Successively, the next Saturday and Sunday, the same tumults and prodigious sights and actions were put in the state and condition they were formerly. The rumour whereof coming to the Majesty at Oxford, he immediately dispatched thither Colonel Lewis Kirk, and Captain Dudley, and Captain Watham, and 3 other gentlemen of credit, to take the full view and the notice of the said business, who, first hearing the relation of Mr. Marshall and others, stayed there till Saturday night following, wherein they saw and heard the forementioned prodigies, and so on Sunday, distinctly knowing divers of the apparitions by their faces, as that of Sir Edmund Varney, and others that were there slain, of which, upon oath, they made testimony to his Majesty. A phantom battle in Northhamptonshire. Fascinating. Let's speak quickly of Mr. Pitt and his servants. Obviously, a good end would be served if examples of a reasonable treatment of servants, followed by good results, were occasionally presented to the consideration of masters and mistresses. Mr. Pitt, who was so able a servant to the state, was also a good master to his own domestics. Mr. Pitt once obtained a servant in a very odd way. Riding on the moors with a friend, they came upon a flock of geese driven by a boy with a bit of red rag at the end of a long stick. "We must ride round," said Mr. Pitt. "We shall never get through this immense flock." "Yes, but you may," cried a sharp-looking boy who had heard him, "if you will only keep your horses quiet. Shish-shay, shish-shay." And the boy waved his stick here and there, and in a minute or two the flock of geese opened, and wheeling to the left and right in regular columns, made a passage through which they rode. "That must be a clever lad," observed Mr. Pitt. "He manoeuvres this little army in a wonderful manner. A general cannot do it better." And he ordered the groom to inquire to whom he belonged. A day or 2 afterwards he was sent for and put in the stables of Mr. Pitt. Next he was made an undergroom, and then taken to town to wait on the upper servants, and afterwards made a footman. Thank you for joining us on this, the 23rd of January. Stay tuned for more entries into the Book of Days. Adios.